Journey to the West. The middle chapters are where a lot of people can tend to get lost. On the one hand, it's some of the best parts of the book. On the other, it can be difficult because the central pattern is a bit repetitive, where they're going along. We have all the groups. We have the four characters essentially gathered together, and they are moving on their journey. And at each point, they come to a new little town or something, and there is a challenge of some sort. They have some sort of wacky adventure. Sometimes there's some magic mixed in. Sometimes there's a fight. And then at a certain point, the issue is resolved and they move on. And this recurs again and again and again. It's a little hard to get a sense of it in excerpt form, but that's basically what's going on for each of these groups of chapters in the middle of this very long book. And some of the fine points get lost because some of the fine points are hard to see regardless of whether it's in an excerpted form or not. Some of it you can see where just the form of it, where it's one adventure and then that ends, and then there's another adventure and then that ends. Playing out almost like it was like a streaming series or something like that, a serial where at the end of every episode, it's an episode and then you move on. And the idea of it being episodic can feel a bit of a slog. But a lot of that has to do with the text origin in oral storytelling. Think about it. All of these little adventures were probably coming from nighttime stories that folk in the country would tell their grandchildren or whatever at bedtime. These are just gather around the fire stories. They're colorful, they're adventurous, they're kind of mysterious. They have a kind of ooh quality to it. And they are quickly resolved in about the length of time that it takes to tell a good story around a fire or at the side of a bed. So you can see that kind of playing out there just on a formal level. But there are other issues within this this structure that I think have some meaning for us. The text itself is a long string of these adventures, a long string of these episodes. There is a sense of progress because you assume, okay, they're constantly moving, so they must be getting closer to their destination, but it's not always all that easy to discern. For a long journey across multiple nations and huge swaths of territory, everybody always speaks the same language. There's no issue there. There are different political structures and social structures at play in each one of these, and we're going to look at a couple of them. But the culture is still largely the same. They all kind of eat the same stuff. They all kind of wear the same stuff. It's nothing all that foreign, even if it's slightly different along the way. So that can give it a sense that, well, okay, nothing's getting all that exotic. And, just think about when you travel anywhere else, you always see incrementally things are a little different. You drive from New York where you see 7-Elevens on every corner, you go down to Pennsylvania and suddenly they're Wawas. And, that's crazy. I get a real sense that I'm in somewhere foreign then. So we're different. That is not the case in this book. And that is curious. But another issue that you have to bear in mind is the cumulative effect of all of this, which can really only be judged in the full work. If you were reading the full 100 chapters, this would become much more apparent. It's very difficult to see when you're just reading a couple of, excerpted pieces from, okay, here's this one and here's another one, and it's hard to see the whole pattern. But that spending time just plodding along through this. Okay, here's another adventure, and Monkey is going to come and do something outrageous, and Pigsy's going to be kind of a glutton, and and the monk is going to end up doing something kind of stupid because he always does, and it's just that again and again and again over a very long stretch of time. And think about it. There is a significance to that. There is a pattern to that that has meaning. When you consider that this journey is on a literal level these four characters traveling from point A to point B to do something, to come back and bring that. That is a specific, explicit goal within the narrative. But there is a symbolic level to that too. They are on their journey to get in touch with something more authentic, to bring authentic scriptures back to their culture, to disseminate so that it can lead to a kind of spiritual authenticity, spiritual revival in their culture, where the religious practices have perhaps grown a little stale and hollow and hit their limitations because they don't have the materials to understand them. So there's another level there. But just thinking even more symbolic terms of the journey being a kind of mimetic representation of our journey in life. Every journey should be seen as the journey of life in literature because they have such great symbolic meaning. And here I think it's crucial to understanding the work as a whole, where they are going on this very long journey, and progress is not always so easy to discern. Sometimes it can just seem like, oh God, another thing and another thing and another thing, and we're never getting anywhere, and it's all kind of the same. And yeah, there are different characters, there are different colors, there are different voices, there are differences on the surface, but really it's just the same thing. You show up somewhere, there's a challenge. You have to find your way through that challenge, and then you resolve that challenge and you move on again and again and again. And there's very little sense of achieving anything. There's very little sense of the journey itself meaning anything on that day-to-day progress. But that's life. That is life. That is the challenge of life. We don't know that we are making progress towards anything when we're going through our day-to-day, right? The alarm goes off in the morning. We just know we get up, we put on our pants, we go about our day. Challenges will come up. We don't know if it means anything. We're just trying to get through the day. There's no real sense of change, but maybe there is on some level. Maybe we are making progress on some level. Maybe at the end of getting up, doing what we have to do, going to bed, getting up, doing what we have to do, going to bed. Maybe there is meaning there that marks progress towards, well, enlightenment, towards heaven, towards some sort of spiritual reward for going through all of this. And you can ascribe this to any number of spiritual beliefs. The shape of it is very inherent in, I would say, Buddhism, because again, the circle is so important. The cycle is so important in a Buddhist tradition where reincarnation is an eternal going through the same thing again and again and again, with the idea that someday, after multiple repetitions, you find release. That plodding through life is what we're all going through. And so when you're in this story and you're struggling with like, oh God, this again, you have to look at it as a kind of experience of, well, your life. And you can get very impatient with it, as we all get very impatient with our lives. You can take some consolation and say, well, all right, these people are okay with it. These people are okay just plugging through. They get irritated from time to time. I get irritated from time to time. They get dispirited and depressed from time to time. I get dispirited and depressed from time to time. But they keep going. And maybe I should too. And that's the sort of thing that can only play out on a very large canvas. You have to give the text some amplitude on that, some space to play out, to give that sense of constantly going through the motions of this thing and then that thing and then that thing. And that can make for some tough reading. You can be forgiven if you're skipping through stuff, but the experience of it is symbolic on multiple levels. And just understanding that, I would say, is crucial to understanding what the text is doing in each individual episode, on each little moment within that episode, but also understand that those are tiny little gears in a much larger machine that's being put into motion. So bear that in mind as we go through.